A chain of dialogue has opened between Nigeria and the micro-blogging platform, Twitter. President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the composition of a team to engage with Twitter over the recent suspension of its operations in the country. The Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, will head the team, which has the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Ministers of Communications and Digital Economy, Foreign Affairs, Works and Housing, and Minister of State for Labor and Employment, as well as other officials as members. Twitter had earlier wrote to President Muhammadu Buhari on the way forward. Wale, I was thinking that this thing will be resolved earlier than this, that it wasn't going to take as long as this. But right now...
Well, it's a good thing that at the end of the day we are coming back to the round table for discussion, because two wrongs do not make a right. The ban on Twitter and then the position of the presidency. I mean, certain decisions that the government takes, that the government also may suffer the consequences. This is one example. Because Twitter is for mass communication, which is very useful for the government itself. It is for getting feedback from the people, you know, and it's also for advertisement about government products, about government policies. And you have about 30 million Nigerians that are using Twitter. Almost about 10% of the entire population of Twitter users all over the world. Twitter has become a kind of business venture for a lot of Nigerians. Twitter itself has about over 5,000 employees, and many of them are Nigerians. So we understand the feeling of the federal government that, look, you know, but at the end of the day, you have to balance, you know, the scale of preference. That which one will be of, you know, utilitarian good, the highest good of the highest number. So banning Twitter, I don't think was the right decision that the government should have taken. And in any case, when the president said Twitter had to be banned, you need to ask yourself, can the words of the president automatically becomes law? No. We have the National Assembly, that if you want to make law, you go to the National Assembly. And there are certain statements that, you know, we see that contradict the fundamentals of the Nigerian Constitution. And even Article 19 of Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which emphasizes the right to free speech using any medium like Twitter. So I think that decision was taken in a hurry by the government within 72 hours. And I hope this dialogue will open up the room for reflection, that at the end of the day, both parties will agree, so that, you know, even APC members in millions who are using Twitter, you know, will not be affected by that decision.
Sorry. When you look at the bone of contention here, there was a time even the federal government, through Alhaji Lai Mohammed, accused Twitter of allowing people that are bent in causing disunity in the country to use their platform to, you know,
opportunity.
Yes, an opportunity. They mentioned the NSAS protest. They mentioned Nnamdi Kanu on his tweets, and, you know, severally before Twitter started taking this down. Do you think the federal government was wrong to have suspended the operation?
I think the federal government was absolutely wrong to have suspended Twitter in the first instance. What they are doing right now is what they're supposed to have done then. Setting up a federal government, because this is a delegation of the Minister of Information, Minister of Works and Housing, Minister of Digital Communication and Digital Economy,
Foreign Affairs.
Foreign Affairs. It's like,
Works and Housing.
We ought to have done this the moment the federal government noticed that bias from Twitter. Take this step rather than banning it. Because there are some Nigerians who are doing legit business on Twitter. Majority of them, they have no business with what's happening with federal government. They are not even involved. They are not interested. They are just there doing their legit business. Now, you ban Twitter. When you ban Twitter, you just made some enemies. People who are not even involved in this kind. Now they are interested. I think we usually, put the cart before the horse in this country in solving issues. This is what the federal government ought to have done earlier. And I'm telling you, Twitter would have listened. I know the president may have issues. Really, I saw but that approach was absolutely wrong. Not this age and time. Not this age and time. It was absolutely wrong, and you can never, there's no way you can paint it and tell me it was right. It's a very big mistake on the part of government, and I'm happy that they're suddenly realizing the fact, because everybody is using it. The presidency is using it. The president himself is using it. The media unit, that's where they sit. And it's a tool for mass communication. You don't need to call press. The benefits are there. I don't want to start mentioning it. So they made a very big blunder. And the earlier we resolve this thing, the better. So the people who are using it for other means, other than governance, politics and all that, can go back to their life. Some people are feeding through that channel. So it's absolutely wrong. We never support it.
A lot of people will argue that even the APC government, when they were coming into office, they deployed all this microblogging network and, to push their campaign and everything. Right now, it's as if the APC-led government, they're the vanguard of, clamping down on freedom of speech and views of the people.
Yeah, I think the Minister of Information is one of the most efficient drivers of information at the time that we had APC in opposition. It was a machine, an unbeatable machine, and one of the instruments he used was social media. So, and we don't know what will happen in the future. That those in power today may also find themselves in opposition. So, when you are taking any decision, you have to look at the long-term impact, the lifelong impact, on even your own interests. And for the fact that they are setting up this kind of high delegation shows how powerful Twitter is.
Just break it down to Nigeria.
Because
the Minister of Information and Culture,
it shows that Twitter is not a fraud that can be ignored.
The Attorney General, that is Mr. Malami, and Minister of Justice, and Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, that is Mr.
It's a very powerful delegation.
Foreign Affairs, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and Works Announcing, that Babatunde Raji Fashola.
Being a lawyer.
Yes, Oyema.
Yes, and
the Minister of State for Legal and Lawyers there. That's Mr. Festus Keyamo, who is also a senior advocate.
Three senior advocates there that I
So basically these are.
It shows how important Twitter is, and we must also recognize that Twitter that is into business, I don't think Twitter can afford to also lose the Nigerian market.
No, they can't lose
because Twitter is worth about $35 billion. And
they need the Nigerian market.
They need the Nigerian market. So there should be a kind of compromise.
So that they have over 40 million.
So
you're correct.
We hope that this negotiation will bring the best for Nigerians.
We're looking forward to that.
Generally, in terms of freedom of expression, a lot of people have said, even before this Twitter event, that the federal government of Nigeria have been doing so much to make sure that people cannot. How would I say it? They want to regulate, like the media now. We are heavily regulated. We have the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission.
You're heavily regulated. Everybody.
Academic the turn, if you step out of turn, it's 5 billion
line. Yes,
or that is your license
be withdrawn. Could be threatened. That is what it is right now. We cannot bend. We cannot. Let's not. That is what it is right now. You can, to an extent, you can't regulate the media. You can't. You're not even. You're not even putting your government in the. It's not good for your government. The image of your government. It is not good for the image.
Okay, I have this do calling us from Imo State.
Good evening.
Good
evening, everybody.
Yes.
Let me start by saying I feel so embarrassed that my country, giant of Africa, the most populous black nation in the world, is preoccupied with issue of Twitter ban. It is quite unfortunate. Is Twitter responsible for the unemployment we're having in Nigeria? Is Twitter responsible for the bad growth and bad governance we have in Nigeria? The answer is no. Like you gentlemen rightly said, this same
Case handled there.
Yeah, so
he has made some valid points.
So it's not good for the
we should rearrange our priorities.
I understand.
Right now, with what we are faced with.
So that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yes,
so
if Sheikh Gumi can come out to tell Nigerians that there are over 100,000 bandits out there, that means I saw a picture of the students that were abducted, and I saw the bandits that they were holding general purpose machine guns, and I saw young men that cannot be more than 20, 21 behind them. They held on to RPG, and if you see the, what do they call it, the magazine
around it,
around there,
that's a bullet.
And looking at their faces, I was dead sure that these guys cannot be up to 25 young men.
That's the sad reality. That's what we're facing today. And we must all rise up to defeat it. If we fail, the country goes down. If we fail to do the needful, don't look at faces. And please, I think it's high time. I'm deviating a bit to that question. I think it's high time. Government, please, can you call Sheikh Gumi? I think he knows more. He knows more. The recent one now is saying that if you cannot accommodate bandits, then schools should remain closed. If an order is like it's coming for, he knows something that the country doesn't know. So why is he being protected? Again,
our young men, the young Nigerians, they seem to have lost hope and confidence in the way government handled this Twitter issue. And they're saying that, look, this should be the least of your problem right now. Setting up this high power committee, that this energy should be dissipated in creating employment and trying to trying to stem the tide of insecurity across the country.
Yes, if somebody has a headache, the solution is not to cut off the head, because you are going to spite yourself. So banning Twitter. Are you going to ban Facebook? Are you going to buy text messaging? Because are you going to ban Nigerians, millions of them abroad, using Twitter, who are not even living in Nigeria? So then, if you don't give us good governance, are you saying people must not talk? So you can't bottle up people's grievances. It will always find an outlet. What we are working towards is that it shouldn't find outlet through violence. People should be able to express themselves. But when you say people can you put a ban, a seal, you cannot talk. That is what gives rights to people taking into violence and all sorts of things. It's a democracy. We have elected them out of our own free will. They must allow us to express ourselves. You don't expect people to be commending people in government everywhere all the time. People will confront you, and that's why we say uneasy lies the head that wears the crown. You must have the body to receive insults, to receive attack, because your salary is being paid from the taxpayers, sweat. You have free accommodation for everything. So let me listen to
Shuaibu Aruna is calling us from Kaduna State. Thank you for joining us, Shuaibu.
Good evening.
Good evening. Please go ahead with your conversation.
I'm really enjoying your program.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead, please.
My contribution on Twitter ban is that instead of the government to ban Twitter completely. Hello.
Just go ahead, please.
Yeah, instead of the government banning Twitter completely, I think if there is anybody having maybe posting anything that the government is against, the government can equally call Twitter and one Twitter that please, you can at least block that person's account. So Twitter can block individuals' accounts. That is my own take.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Because if you look at the Committee of Nations, that's already the Twitter and all this, some social media, microblogging sites that have been let's say like North Korea, say India,
China,
funny countries,
they have alternative.
India
has
They have
that started only recently with over 3 million users. as we speak.
Yes.
China has a signer window with about 126 million,
Which one do we
250 million
Which
users.
one do we have?
So we don't have an alternative. And
We
why
don't
China
have.
is not allowing Twitter is for economic reasons. Because if Twitter, more for economic reasons and also for political reasons, if Twitter goes into China, it's going to take over the market and the money will not go to China. So it's for both economic reasons and political reasons. We cannot imitate such countries. Our own situation, our own history is different.
Yes,
and we cannot afford to confront Western nations. They are our creditors. They are our allies. We can't take the same position taken by China or India.
Yes.
We cannot.
Yes.
And finally, okay, Tony, you want to make a
in
final
addition to
submission?
that, when people abuse or when subscribers abuse a platform, like for instance Twitter, there are ways to go about it. You report it.
Yeah.
Twitter cannot just yank off your post. There's a channel. It's when you exploit and it doesn't work, and you must have evidence that we did this and Twitter refused. That is when you can then say, okay, this is what. That's when you can say there's an element of bias. That's the mistake government made here. And I hope by the time they resolve this, we won't go back to that same route again.